2020 will go into the annals of history as a period when humans came head-on with one of the biggest challenges the planet ever encountered, which is the coronavirus. With the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 surge a global pandemic, nations of the world, including Nigeria, swung into action. So much happened in the past months, yet the solution remains prevention and management of the infection. With the reopening of many sectors, what is the several mindset of the average Nigerian about the virus? Are there valid indications that a cure is achievable before the year rolls over? These and other issues will be dissected on Panorama today, coming to you live from the NTA Lagos Network Center. I am Dotun Ogunyemi. Welcome. Now let's begin. International flights into the country will resume from the 29th of August 2020, beginning with Lagos and Abuja airports. Minister of Aviation Adi Serika announced the resumption at Monday's briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja. Mitari Ikben reports.
Flights will resume.
It was the news many Nigerians who are stranded abroad and could not make series of evacuation flights have been waiting for. Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika, however, makes it clear that international travelers must test negative for COVID-19 before departure abroad and will pay for another COVID-19 test to be conducted 1 week after arriving in the country.
All protocols exist. They will continue alongside the opening of these airports. In the beginning, there will be 4 flights into Lagos and 4 flights into Abuja daily. We'll give further details on that in due course. And to say that this is a decision taken by the PTF, there will also be a portal that will be open. Prior to your departure, you will pay through that platform. You pay through that platform for a test to be done here in Nigeria day 8 after your arrival. Meaning that just before you depart, you take a test, hopefully you are negative and you're not showing any signs of COVID, then we board you on the flight. You'd have filled online your health questionnaire, and then when you come, you arrive in Nigeria, go through all the protocols and you exit the airport. So the 8th day after your arrival, which we would have considered the incubation period, may God forbid you may show signs of COVID, and then you take a test at that time on the 8th day. So it is safe to fly if we observe all of those protocols in place.
In spite of low COVID-19 positivity rate in recent time, the PTF insists that Nigeria is fully in the phase of community transmission and will not lower its guard.
We have not attained the desired level that would enable us to make conclusive statements on the rate of infection in the country. We must therefore continue to do that which gives us record improvements and desist from actions capable of undermining our successes.
It's important to know that for every single case we get positive, we are missing a lot more.
Nigerians are warned to avoid self-medication if they experience COVID-19 symptoms, but go immediately for testing and self-isolation. In Abuja, Mitari Ikben, NTA News.
The latest statistics provided by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control reveals that 417 new cases of coronavirus have been recorded in the country as at the 17th of August, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 49,485. The new cases were recorded in 16 states and the FCT. The breakdown shows that Lagos recorded the daily highest number of cases with 207, followed by Kaduna with 44. Ondo has 38, Abia 28, Anambra 21, Plateau 20, Bauchi 13, Oyo and Ebonyi have 9 new cases each. Delta and Edo also have 7 cases. Enugu 6, Niger 3, Gombe 2, Ogun, FCT and Kano have 1 new cases each. The total number of patients discharged so far stands at 36,000.
Nigerians have stayed committed to keeping the deadly virus at bay. Wearing of face masks in public remains compulsory. And with the eased lockdown, most sectors have reopened. Schools are back in session to an extent, while religious and worship places that were shut for more than 3 months are now open to members, but with strict guidelines.
The gates of hell or corona can never prevail against it. So we're very, very elated and we thank God.
We will not allow old people, those above 65, we will not allow them, and children below 15.
Although life may seem almost back to normal and people are less apprehensive, the future is what majority are optimistic about. All eyes are on medical researchers, hoping that before the epic year 2020 ends, there will be a cure for a virus that will never be forgotten. In Lagos, Becky Madujemu, NTA News.
Here to talk about the subject matter is a professor of clinical research and neuroscience, Professor Chidi Njemanze. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, Prof, how would you describe the current mindset of Nigerians on the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I must say that Nigerians have done very, very well in internalizing the information provided during this time. The government did tremendously very well to make as much information as that was available to the people. And the Nigerian people internalized this information and took the matters into their hands, which is actually what you need in any pandemic. Because there is no real laid down medical measures that can combat the challenges of a pandemic unless the people internalize and use the methods which they know best, that have been with them for thousands of years in order to avert disease. And I think that's what we are seeing developing in this pandemic. We have been through this before with Ebola, with Lassa fever, and now COVID-19. And we are seeing that the natural methods and the indigenous knowledge systems which our people recruit to help them in any pandemic really works. It even works better than the more modern techniques of having service provided at the hospitals.
And has this been the reason why fears of the past month have sort of reduced, and in spite of daily emergence of new cases and deaths?
Yes, the truth of the matter is the only way to deal with the pandemic is what we call herd immunity. Herd immunity comes when a substantial number of people develop the disease in a cluster. And once that happens, they develop the immunity, and that starts breaking the cycle of the infection. And this is really what really puts a break to the spread of any disease. And in this case, we are seeing that developing in the people. So we are cautiously optimistic that if this trend continues, we will have this disease behind us in not too far from now.
And what are the implications of family pandemic, even while observing the safety protocols?
Well, the safety protocols, they are there, and people have, taken precautions the way they know how. But when we advocate these safety protocols, we also have at the back of our mind that people have to live, and if you make them too strict, the compliance becomes very, very poor. And that's why we must always have in our mind that people will still have to live a normal life. And that normal life will mean that some of these stringent protocols will not be adhered to. But that's not so bad when you have a disease that has a very, very low mortality. And once that is the case, the danger of observing very, very strict protocols, the economic consequences becomes even much more deadly than the disease itself. So, and in this case, I think COVID-19 has demonstrated that. And that's why I would still say that the people overall have done very, very well.
And Prof, you've had your ear to the ground in terms of ongoing researches. Recently, it was widely reputed that Russia has developed a vaccine. What is the truth behind these vaccines and anyone anywhere in the world?
Yes, there have been a very frantic race, just like the same thing they do during the arms race between Russia and the West and America to develop a vaccine. And the Russians seem successfully to have come up with a vaccine that really works. And I think in no too distant future, maybe probably before the end of the year, we will hear about the American companies who have come up with a vaccine too. And the Chinese are just about to patent their own vaccine version. These efforts are welcome everywhere, but usually it's always too little, too late. The pandemic will be probably, the worst of the pandemic will be probably over before the vaccines will be very useful. And this is what we really see. It is not medically strange. This happens in every flu season. Before the vaccine comes out, the flu is gone by, and it's not. This COVID-19 will not be an exception. I do not think that we should have placed too much emphasis on the vaccine, and probably that is very unnecessary. The natural system of acquiring herd immunity still remains the best. It is sustainable. We face diseases of this type, and luckily, in COVID-19, as in other diseases, we have cross-reactivity. That means some of the immunity that is acquired in other diseases also offer some level of protection, T-cell protection in COVID-19. So we are comfortable with the natural system. I am still one of those people who think that we should not place our bets on the vaccines, because if you place your bet on the vaccine, depending on the mechanism, the vaccines are usually tailored to a particular target. And if there is a mutation of the virus, the emphasis can be different, and that becomes that the vaccine you obtained really cannot defend you against the new mutant variant. So for the natural immunity, the T-cell immunity, the one that develops in the body, really has versatility and can respond to a whole wide range of conditions, even when there is a mutation of the virus.
Now, do Nigerian researchers have any lead as to any cure or vaccine?
Could you repeat that, please?
Nigerian researchers, do we have any lead in Nigeria as to a vaccine or cure?
If I understood the question, because it's breaking, if there is any need for to hope for a vaccine cure?
From Nigerian researchers.
The Nigerian researchers?
Yes.
Yeah, the Nigerian researchers have been and should be very much interested in developing vaccines. Unfortunately, we have a very, very sorry state in this country whereby the local researchers have not been encouraged. We should have a very, very strong institute of virology. And we do. In fact, I remember during the time of Professor Njokobe, when he worked on the cholera vaccine and the controversies that surrounded it, and thereafter so many others have done a lot of groundbreaking work in this area. But we have not been forthcoming. We have been actually looking at searching and waiting for others to develop vaccines. It's a very dangerous premise, because vaccines can be used to do good. Vaccines can also be used to do quite a lot of harm. So no nation, and this is what at least we should learn from Russia, China, and all the other countries, no nation should subject their people to vaccines made from outside. The safest vaccines are vaccines developed within the country for the people. And this is something of a national security importance. Because I can tell you, there are some vaccines you can match with an infertility drug, an infertility fragment, and sterilize the whole nation. And that is a way of doing the bacteriological work. This is not meat. We know it's published in reputable scientific literature. So it's not something that you can leave to other nations to develop vaccine and send them down to you, and then they want to do you charity and they provide vaccines. Actually, I'm of the view that we should not, on a very firm note, just accept vaccines from any nation unless we have double-checked it in our own labs by our own people and
others were wounded in action. The military high command congratulates the gallant troops for their professionalism and encourages them to intensify the onslaught against the enemies. Experts have identified provision of modern facilities as catalyst to discovery of budding talents. Olumide Ekuntola is our guide on Sports Update.
Only individual Olympic gold medalist Chioma Ajuma have identified regular physical and mental training with adequate modern sports facilities and international exposure among other factors as pivotal in raising future Olympic gold medalists.
When I was preparing for my Olympics, I went to Malaga, I went to Czech Republic, all those with different weather, just to build up and make sure that you are okay.
Elsewhere in Lagos, the lockdown declared by the federal government early this year due to COVID-19 has started yielding positive results, aside curtailing the spread of the virus, as some athletes in Lagos use the period to venture into learning vocational skills. One of such athletes is Uko Amaka Oko, a professional player with MFM women basketball team that ventured into shoemaking business.
I decided to do shoemaking just to stand out. They said shoemaking is a man's job.
MFM is not just sport. The youth are also advised to do what can give them extra income.
She encouraged other athletes to follow her footsteps as this is gainful, especially after retiring from active sports. From the foreign scene, football fans and analysts have continued to react to Manchester United's third semi-final loss of the season.
That is the price again you pay when you fail to convert your chances.
I don't know why the Ghana Soldier did not use Odionikalo early enough. At the beginning of the second half, when they had, the chances, Ghana would have scored one of those.
Julian Lopetegui outsmarted Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He kept his core players, brought them on when it was needed, De Jong, Monier. But you can't say the same thing about United and Solskjaer. They lack squad depth.
Meanwhile, attention will be shifted to the first semi-final of the UEFA Champions League on Tuesday when RB Leipzig lock arms with Paris Saint-Germain. With Sports Update, Olumide Ekuntola, NTA News.
A former managing director and editor-in-chief of the News Agency of Nigeria, NAN, Malam Wada Maida, is dead. He died on Monday at the age of 70. A close associate of the late statesman Issa Funtua, Maida was said to have slumped in his home. In 2017, he was appointed chairman of NAN board by President Muhammadu Buhari. Maida, a former press secretary to President Buhari when he was military head of state between 1984 and 1985, was board chairman of People's Media Limited. He became NAN managing director in 1994 after a long spell as editor-in-chief beginning from 1985. He joined NAN as a pioneer editorial staff in 1978 and was at various times the political editor and London bureau chief, an executive board member of the International Press Institute. The late Maida contributed to the growth of journalism in the country. And it's on that note that we end Panorama from the Lagos Network Center. Many thanks for watching.